Okay, now we are moving on to Rice academics. So there are several undergraduate schools. There's the White School of Natural Sciences, the George R. Brown School of Engineering, the School of Social Sciences, the School of Humanities, School of Architecture, and the Shepherd School of Music. You can apply to the first four schools, Natural Sciences, Engineering, Social Sciences, and Humanities, using the Common App, and you just have to apply and say that you're interested in it. The School of Architecture, however, is a 6-year program and it requires a portfolio, and the Shepherd School of Music is a professional music conservatory and therefore requires an audition. However, if you do, say, apply to the School of Natural Sciences and then you move on to Rice and decide that you want to switch majors, it is very easy to switch majors between Natural Sciences, Engineering, Social Sciences, and Humanities, the first four schools. You do not feel like there's a very big shift or very big divide between these four schools. You can take classes in any of these four schools. You can take classes in architecture and music too if you want, but you can basically take classes anywhere and you can like switch in and out of majors. It's super easy to switch majors here because it really doesn't feel like there's a departmental divide. With the exception of architecture and music, because they are very specialized programs who require portfolios or an addition, they are less easy to switch out of and less easy to switch into. Also, all the students live together in the residential colleges, which adds once again to the feeling of no separation between any of the departments. So in addition to your major requirements, you also have distribution, and there are 3 different types of distribution divisions. There's Division 1, which is Humanities, Division 2, which is Social Sciences, and Division 3, which is Natural Sciences and Engineering. So every student is required to get at least 9 credits in Humanities in all of the divisions, in all the distribution divisions. And that's to ensure that our education at Rice is very well-rounded. In addition to that, there's also LPAP, or Lifetime Physical Activity Program, which is sort of like physical education, but there's a bunch of other classes out there. There's a bunch of swimming courses, dance courses, yoga, fencing, and a lot of different LPAP classes that you can take. And then every first-year student is required to take a first-year writing intensive seminar, which is very important. Okay, so I just wanted to touch a little bit on popular classes at the school. There's, within each division, so Division 1, which is Humanities, some of the most popular classes include Introduction to Fiction Writing, the Sculpture and Painting classes. There's even a class called 14 Films Before You Graduate. In terms of Division 2, the psychology classes are very popular, as well as sociology and economics. And then in Division 3, there's this great class called Monster, which is where you learn about the biology of the monsters you see in books. And it's actually cross-listed with a humanities course. And then another great Division 3 course that people are very interested in taking is Comp 140, which is our Intro to Computer Science class. It's a very big class and very popular. And what makes these classes really interesting is just they're often very interesting classes, and they're often very small classes, especially for the Division 1 and Division 2 classes. And they often have very great professors who care very much about the students and about undergraduate learning. One of the things I really appreciate about many of the professors here, not all, but many of the professors at Rice are very dedicated to undergraduate teaching and very dedicated to their undergrads and making sure that they learn. So in terms of the format of classes, there are big classes and then there are small classes. So Rice has a relatively small undergraduate population, about 4,000 students. So you'll never get a big lecture hall of like 500 or 1,000 students. I believe like the biggest lecture I've been in had like maybe 200, 300 students. And even then they were broken down into sections. so that there aren't 300 students in one room. And even then, teachers are very good at picking undergraduate or graduate TAs who are there to facilitate small group discussions or really help out. So you never really feel super lost, and the professor doesn't always seem like this far away figure you will never ever get to meet. For example, my neuroscience class, which is considered probably like a medium-sized class with about 60 students, they had a lot of assigned small group work. And my Gen Chem class, which is once again a huge class because almost every STEM major has to take it, there was a lot of small group work, and I got really close to my TA because I felt like I would need to ask questions, and I can often rely on my TA to help answer those questions. For many of the smaller classes, most of the smaller classes have about 15 students and are often discussion based. I actually took a class once with only 6 students, and I got a lot of individualized attention from my professor. Labs are often run by the professor. However, there are often undergraduate, or often not undergraduate, just graduate TAs who are there to help you during the lab. And they're there to kind of circulate in the lab and help you. But it is run by the professor. The professor will often give the pre-lab talk and will be in the lab to facilitate all the learning. In terms of student-professor relationships, due to the nature of such a small school, I found that Rice professors are often quite accessible. Most professors will try to get to know your name and are very responsive during office hours. I've often had lunch with my professors, had in-depth conversations. One of my biggest memories and most memorable memories was my first year biology professor. He, despite having like 200 students, he went to every single residential college and had lunch with every single student he had at residential college just to get to know them, chat with them, learn about what they're interested in. I remember talking to him about this magazine article I read about brain transplants, and he was completely shocked. And then it's just having these student-professor relationships and really getting to know your professor that I found was really important and vital to me at Rice. And it's just great seeing that professors really want to get to know you and what you're interested in. In terms of other resources, there's our big old Fondren Library, which is the main library on campus. It's a great place to study, but also a great place to do research. There's multiple resources that I can't even count, honestly. There's access, as a Rice student, you have access to thousands of collections. There are different departments. There's Digital Media Commons, which is for videos, and if you want to rent out cameras or print out a poster. There's the Woodson Research Center, Interlibrary Loan. I've used the library so many times for research purposes. I did undergraduate research as an undergrad, so I've spent quite a good amount of time just like going through all these journals and that Rice has given us access to online. In addition to that, many of my classes have required me to do research. I've taken a history class before, and I just went to the library and got like 5 books on my topic just from and I didn't even realize I could. And then even just using software like ArcGIS. Fondren Library often has a bunch of classes to teach you how to use software like ArcGIS or Zotero, and to just help you gain knowledge on how to use those resources, and so that you can either build skills for the future or use them for your projects. So it's also, Fondren Library, like I mentioned before, is also a great place to study. There are 6 floors, and the floors get quieter as you go up. So the first floor is the floor that is the loudest, or as loud as a library could be. And then the 6th floor is like almost absolutely silent. It's a great place if you really need to study on the 6th floor. And there are designated study spots throughout the the library, so those are quiet spots and quiet zones where you cannot have your phone. You have to have your phone on vibrate. You cannot really like talk at those sites because those are designated quiet zones. And there are also study rooms at every floor, almost every floor, at Fondren Library. In terms of other study spots, the great thing about Houston is that it's mostly warm throughout the year, so there's quite a lot of outdoor seating. There's outdoor seating at the residential colleges, near the music school, outside of labs. I personally love using outdoor seating. I usually study outdoors, especially during the spring semester when it's all nice, and in April, when it's April, May, when it's finals week. I usually just end up studying on campus, outside, and really just enjoying the sunshine while also studying. In addition to that, there's Brochstein Pavillion, which is this glass pavilion in the middle of campus and has a cafe in there. So it's a really cafe, coffee vibes while still giving this studious environment. And then there's Coffee House, which is our student-run coffee shop. And you can often find many students there working and getting their daily dose of coffee. So in terms of registering for classes, I know in many other universities, registering for classes is very, very stressful. I'm not saying it's not stressful at Rice, just less stressful. So first year students, you actually register for classes during O week. So there's actually a amount of spots that each professor in the majority of first year classes have to maintain for students. So there are a number of seats that are saved for first year students. And in turn, during O week, you get your departmental advisors and your O week advisors. Your O week advisors are upperclassmen who happen to be part of your O week group. And so your O week advisors and your departmental advisors, as well as your O week PAAs, they are the ones who will literally sit with you with your laptop and help you plan and register for your classes for your first year. So while first year registering for classes may be stressful, like it's actually not so much, especially if you have help during O week. I remember just sitting there during O week freaking out about my classes, and one of my O week advisors just came over and just went like, okay, like you're interested in a humanities class, here's some humanities classes you can look like. This one looks like it can fit in your schedule. Why don't you look at that? And it was just super useful having someone just sitting there helping me planning things out where I'm freaking out over just the vast variety of classes that Rice offers. In subsequent semesters, everyone has a period in which they can register for classes and plan out schedules. And then afterwards you get preliminary schedules, and then you can add and drop classes. So your add and dropping, at least for the first 30 minutes, depends on your priority, as well as registering for classes. Registering for classes depends on your priority. So if you are a senior, you get priority in some classes, versus if you are a freshman. Everyone registers for classes at the same time. There's no designated time slot, but your ability to get into some classes may be affected depending on whether or not you are a senior versus whether or not you are a freshman. So oftentimes the most coveted classes, like some of the popular classes I just mentioned, they're usually full of seniors and juniors because they are the ones who get priority over getting into those classes. However, if the class is needed for your major, you will often get your priority. So for example, if you're a bio major and you want to get into a computer science class, you might not get into the class. However, if you're a computer science major, and you want to get into a computer science class and you are struggling to, oftentimes all you have to do is go to the registrar or going to a major advisor and just go like, hey, like I'm a computer science major, I really need to get into the class, and you will get priority over someone who is not a computer science major.